Hello and welcome. In this lesson, we look at factors influencing the rate of photosynthesis. The rate of photosynthesis is affected by a number of factors. These factors include light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, temperature, and water. It is the level of each of these factors that will determine the rate at which photosynthesis will take place. Now, all these factors must be present at their optimum levels. So talk about the optimum levels for photosynthesis to proceed at the fastest rate. Should any of these factors be at their lowest point, then the rate of photosynthesis will be low regardless of the level of the other factors. For example, if for instance light intensity is at its lowest level, then the rate of photosynthesis will be slow regardless of the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, regardless of the surrounding temperature, and regardless of the availability of water. In the same case, if carbon dioxide concentration is very low, then even if you have enough light intensity, the temperature is optimum, there is water available, the rate of photosynthesis will be low. Now, the factor at its lowest level is called the limiting factor. That factor, which at a given time is at its lowest level, be it light intensity, be it carbon dioxide concentration, the temperature, or water availability, will be the limiting factor. So, for example, under low light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis will be low regardless of how high the levels of carbon dioxide, the temperature, or water availability are. The light, in this case, will therefore be the limiting factor, and the rate can only increase if the light intensity is also increased. Now, we look at the effect of each one of these factors on the rate of photosynthesis, starting with light intensity. Now, as light intensity increases, the rate of photosynthesis also increases up to a point and then levels off. This is illustrated in the graph. So if we start at a particular level of light intensity and we increase the intensity, the rate of photosynthesis is going to increase correspondingly up to a certain point, beyond which it levels off. Now, you know the role of light. Recall the role of light in photosynthesis. Light provides the energy for photolysis of water and also energy for carbon dioxide fixation. So as we increase the light intensity, there is more energy available for photolysis and carbon dioxide fixation. But a point is reached beyond which, even if we raise the light intensity further, the rate of photosynthesis levels of it remains constant. So if you look at the graph, that point that produces the highest rate of photosynthesis corresponds to the optimum range of light intensity. A further increase beyond the optimum range will not yield any increase in the rate of photosynthesis. Why? Because the other factors such as carbon dioxide and temperature, which are required for photosynthesis to proceed, are not increasing, and thus they become limiting. So beyond this optimum range of light intensity, the other factors, carbon dioxide and temperature become limiting because they are not increasing in step with the light intensity. So when you start at a very low light intensity, light was the limiting factor. But as you increase the intensity, the rate will also increase up to a certain point. That is the optimum range. A further increase beyond the optimum range will have no effect on the rate, because beyond this point it is not light intensity that is limiting, it is carbon dioxide concentration and temperature that become limiting. Now turning to the second one, the second factor, that is carbon dioxide concentration. See, under normal conditions, the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is about 0.04%. There may be occasional small fluctuations, either rising above or below the 0.04%. Now, despite these occasional fluctuations, the level in the atmosphere remains remarkably constant. It's always at about this 0.04%. This normally low atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration is a major limiting factor to photosynthesis. So under natural conditions, carbon dioxide level is what limits the rate at which photosynthesis will take place. Now under artificial conditions, the levels may be increased, and thence the rate of photosynthesis will also increase. Now we can look at the relationship between carbon dioxide and the rate of photosynthesis in the graph below. So starting at low carbon dioxide concentration, so as we increase the carbon dioxide concentration, the rate also increases, but up to a certain point. When we attain the highest rate, that is the highest rate. So the level that produces the fastest rate of photosynthesis is said to be the optimum range. Now, if we continue increasing, that is under experimental conditions, if we continue increasing the level of carbon dioxide beyond the optimum, the rate of photosynthesis will remain constant. Why? Again, here the reason is the other factors that are necessary for photosynthesis to take place have remained constant. So increase in carbon dioxide alone beyond its optimum range under those prevailing conditions will have no impact on the rate of photosynthesis. So the rate will proceed at the optimum range of CO2. It is as if the extra carbon dioxide available have no role to play in photosynthesis, because remember, the other factors are not increasing in step, so they become limiting. Those factors that are at their lowest concentrations or levels become limiting. So even if we increase carbon dioxide beyond a certain point, the level becomes constant. It remains constant rather with photosynthesis, because the other factors, temperature and light, are now limiting. The third factor is temperature. The light-dependent stage of photosynthesis is not affected by temperature. Remember, there are two stages of photosynthesis. There's the light stage and the dark stage, also known as light independent. So light stage does not depend on temperature, is not affected by the temperature, but the dark stage is influenced by temperature. This is because the reactions that take place in the dark stage, that is the carbon dioxide fixation, is enzyme controlled, and enzymes are affected by temperature. Hence, an increase in temperature leads to an increase in the rate of photosynthesis, because the temperature affects the second stage. So as the temperature rises, such at a low point here, an increase in temperature will also lead to an increase in the rate of photosynthesis up to a certain point. Beyond that point, the point that produces the highest rate, that will be the optimum temperature range. Now, beyond the optimum temperature range, a further increase results in a decrease in the rate of photosynthesis. Now, in most cases, the optimum range of temperature is usually between 35 and 40 degrees C in most plants. So, why does the rate decrease beyond the optimum? It's because as the temperature rises, the enzymes become more activated, so they speed up the rate of photosynthesis. But when the temperatures rise beyond the optimum, the enzymes get destroyed. We say the enzymes become denatured. And as more and more become denatured, the rate decreases until it may eventually come to a stop. Now, water as a factor affects many reactions in a plant, not just photosynthesis. And even photosynthesis, water is involved in a number of ways as a raw material, and therefore if it is deficient, then the rate will go down. Water is also necessary to make the cells turgid, thereby providing support for the leaves to open and spread out, thereby providing a large surface area for absorption of light, and also the turgidity makes the stomata to open to allow carbon dioxide to diffuse into the leaf. Now, since water has so many functions in a plant, it is impossible to directly relate its availability and the rate of photosynthesis like these other two factors. So we just note that water is necessary for photosynthesis to take place. Without water, the process will not proceed. And the lower the water availability, the lower the rate of photosynthesis.